Thank you.
Just top priorities, what you're planning on focusing on this audit.
Great.
Great.
As was mentioned, the sunset goes off on the surplus eliminator. So we're looking at a surplus. So you have three schools of thought. One that thinks that we ought to keep the sun up, as it were, and continue to put half of that surplus into transportation projects, the other half into savings. And so that'd be one school of thought. There's others that say we have not filled our coffers back up to the level that they were pre-recession. And then there's a third school of thought that says, well, if you're having a surplus, that means your tax rates are too high. And I think, and I'm delineating these as three distinct schools and three distinct silos, but there's a lot of overlap, at least in the House, on each of these areas. And so that'll be a conversation that we'll have in the House. Personally, just plain old Scott, just representative of District 27, I think that I have long thought that our income tax rate were not, they do not make Idaho as competitive when it comes to citing new businesses here as our neighboring states that have a much lower rate. Now but if we can keep them at the table long enough, we can talk about our grocery tax credits and all these other things that we've chosen through the years to spend our tax policy dollars on, if you will. But I don't think that those are as effective when it comes to citing new businesses here as it would be if we had a 5% income tax rate, for example. I am also a fan of savings accounts.
Yeah, the surplus eliminator was a compromise with the transportation bill, and it takes money out of the general fund and moves it into transportation, when in fact Idaho has a long history of basically firewalling, as much as is reasonable, the general fund from dedicated funds for transportation. It's my opinion that we should continue, my opinion is in alignment with the governor, that we should continue to use dedicated funds for transportation, and that any argument that says that the gas tax is a decreasing tax and is something that is not going to be reasonable for a long period of time that's hogwash, for lack of a better term. So we should be using dedicated transportation funds. As for being open to tax relief, certainly you could say that lowering the income tax rate from 7.4 to 5% or 6.2% or whatever folks agree with might be a neat piece of window dressing that would help make Idaho more competitive. However, the fact that we have 35% of adults over the age of 25 that have a college degree in an environment that increasingly requires some level of advanced high school training is a real underlying structural problem that causes structural employment issues in Idaho. And if we continue to talk about third grade reading levels and we don't have the conversation of what do we do before kindergarten to ensure that we have children ready to reach third grade reading levels, then we are not going to get to the place where Idaho is competitive with our neighbors, including Utah, Washington, and Oregon. So while I believe tax relief is important, and I don't know anybody on my side that would say that tax relief is something that we shouldn't look at, certainly the structural underlying pieces of Idaho's fabric that indicate the readiness of our workforce should be addressed before that.